Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this first webinar in the series of webinars on filling your Common App. I am Devesh Lati, the program manager at the Next Genius Foundation. Next Genius is a scholarship program which offers full and partial tuition scholarships to students who wish to pursue their undergraduate education in the US. The applications for our program are now open. All the grade 12 students or gap year students who wish to apply to the US and wish to win a scholarship, you're very much welcome to check our website, nextgenius.com, and apply to us online. With that said, today we have Mr. Federico Silva from Northwestern University in Qatar, who is going to take us through the holistic admissions process that the universities in the US use. Northwestern University in Qatar is also a partner with Next Genius Scholarship Program. So without any further ado, I invite Fred to take the presentation and get going. Yeah, hi Fred.
Hi Devesh, thanks for having me. Good evening, everybody. It's just beginning of the afternoon, I guess, here for us. And thanks for attending. I'm actually just gonna share my screen here. I have a brief presentation and we'll be going through a little bit of what a holistic admission process and what admissions in general looks like for students that are actually applying to the United States in particular. Although I'm actually physically located in Qatar, we're an American university, so we follow the same model. So that's where I'm going to focus today. If you have any questions, I invite you to type them in the Q&A section, and I will make sure that I allow time to answer as many questions as I can. Sounds good. All right, can you guys see my screen? Devesh, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can see, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going. Again, like I said, I'm gonna be talking a little bit about the admissions process here. In particular, this is actually some of the items that I'm gonna try to touch on the presentation today. And like I said, please ask me any questions that you have. I'll begin talking a little bit about what exactly holistic admission is. I think a lot of admission folks out there are going to be talking about holistic. You're going to hear the phrase a lot throughout your application model in time. I'll be going a little bit about, I'll mention a sample of what we normally ask in universities in the US. This is again a generalization of what the process is. Some universities might ask the exact same material, some might not. And going a little bit deeper into why we ask for each of them. Talk a little bit about the application processes that are in the US. So there are different ways in which you will be submitting your application. There are different plans which you can apply, which I'll also go through those as well. Give you a quick simple timeline. In full disclosure, I did look at the timeline as in like what we follow at Northwestern, but it tends to be very similar to anybody else. And then at the end, I'll finish with like a quick overview about Northwestern, and then that way I can answer questions about the process. So I'll just keep going over here. So this is actually not something that is a statement that I created, but I thought it was a great statement that explains a little bit about what holistic admission process is. And although it is in the screen, I'll go through that. It just basically talks about the fact that holistic review allows a great sense to understand exactly not how your academic qualifications are, but basically who you are as a person and how you're going to contribute to, and then, you know, Northwestern community or any community of the college that you decide to join. So basically holistic here just means reviewing you as an entire individual, not just as an academic qualifying person. And to give you a bit of a background of why we do this in the US, and I always explain this as in your journey, your academic journey in the United States is much larger than simply someone who is going to be performing a transaction. You're not applying and attending university in the United States simply to just gain some knowledge where you basically acquire that knowledge and then apply the knowledge for your career. Now, we understand that that's a large part of what your professional career will go through. You're going to obviously gain some skills, But to us in the United States, when you attended university there, you are going to be a member of a community. You're going to be contributing to the entire community. You will learn from faculty members, but you will also learn from peers that are going to class with you. When you live on campus, you will learn how not to just to be an academic member, but also a member of society at large. You're going to be interacting with individuals that are living in the same building, sometimes in the same room as you are. You'll be joining clubs. You'll be talking about, you'll be gaining leadership skills. You'll be gaining everything outside of the classroom. So it's those soft skills that we talk about often. This is the difference. And I think this is one of the greatest gains of the education model and the education system in the US. If you had to pinpoint what is the difference between someone learning mathematics in any country and learning mathematics in the United States, is because universities are much more than simply someone who just gives you the mathematic tools and then lets you actually go and apply those to a career. You'll be able to problem solve, you'll be able to do all kinds of things. So because of that, and that was a large explanation, but because of that, we also perform the same level of understanding in the admissions process. So we know that you're not someone who's just going to attend class and go home. So how do we evaluate an application based on much more than somebody who's just performed just a task in high school and will continue to perform a similar task in college? So just to give you also a sense here, there was a study that the University of Michigan performed a few years ago. And they've asked over 300 individuals out there how they approach holistic admissions. And there were three larger senses of that. And it's just basically, you can approach holistic admission as someone who evaluates your entire file. What's your file? The application, the materials, everything that you've submitted to that institution. They can evaluate the application, and their approach is, I'm not evaluating just a file in front of me, but I'm evaluating an entire person. So what are your characteristics as an individual? And they can also evaluate things that's not just that, but put context to you, to your file. So how, in the example of students from India, so how have you performed given the qualifications that were presented, given the opportunities that were presented to you in India, for example? So this is basically the difference. As you can see, the majority of responses actually are about the file. And that's a good segue over here. Your file are the application materials that you're going to be submitting to us. So at times in different universities that you'll be applying, your file is basically a representation of who you are. So they don't know you outside of that, but they might know a few things. They might know you're an applicant from India. They're going to put some context to that. They might know you attended maybe an international school in India. That's one context. Maybe you did not. Maybe you attended a CBSE system. So what are the tools that were provided to you, and what have you done with it? But those are all part of your file. So I'll give you an example here. So a lot of the times you're going to be applying, and I'll go through the timeline later on, but I like to describe holistic review in terms of like a three-legged stool that you'll be standing on. So you need all those three to understand who you are. And one of those legs to me is your academic history. The other one is the attitude that you have towards learning, your goals, who you want to be in life, and so on and so forth. And then the last part is, who are you going to be, again, in our community? So if you're applying to Northwestern Qatar, who are you going to be within our group over here? And there are items that we will be asking. When you look at the application process for an American university, it's quite extensive. And we do this because we would like to ask for items that touch one or more of these three categories that I'm presenting in front of you right now. So let's just go over and I'll give you a couple of examples here. So for example, academic history, that's a pretty clear one, as you would probably know already. Your board results, for example, if you've attended a system in India that requires you to perform board examinations at the end, or if you attended, for example, an IB program, your board results, your results in school, or your transcripts, this is your academic history. If I know, and I'm looking at your file in front of me and I have your transcripts and I have your mark sheets, and I know you got an A1 in English, that's a pretty straightforward result. I know how you're going to be in English and so on and so forth. Other examples that will tell us a little bit more about your academic history, your academic potential there is standardized examinations. So this is going to vary a little bit now in these days that we're living in with the pandemic, but many universities in the United States require you to take the SAT or the ACT. And that's just, again, one more layer that tells us what your academic history is and what your academic potential. What we're looking for in your academic history is what are the chances that you're going to succeed provided the academic curriculum of the university that you're applying. So if you're applying to my university, I'm going to see by your academic histories, can you handle the academic curriculum and expectations of Northwestern? That's all we're looking in there. And we typically, it's to dive a little bit even deeper there. It's not just as a final result, it's not a result as a whole. We actually would like to look at even individual classes that you have had and how have you done. And then the history continues for about 3 years, for example. So maybe you started really well and you continue really well, you're just consistently good in your academic history, that's great. Maybe you struggle a little bit, but you've actually got the hang of things and you went forward. We look at all of that in your application too. Talking a little bit about learning attitude here, that's basically who are you as a academic person in general. So your letters recommendation, lots and lots of universities, including us out there, will ask you for 1, 2, 3, depends on the university, letters of recommendation from your teachers. This doesn't tell us, I know what your classroom result was based on your transcript, but a letter of recommendation tells me a little more. It tells me who you are in classroom. Are you quiet? Or do you like to participate? Are you a leader? Are you somebody who actually adds a lot to a team? Maybe not as a leader, but you're a very important, person in that particular team. And that's just equally as important as somebody who is a leader, for example. All of that is actually comes through in our letters of recommendation. They'll tell us lots and lots about you. And that's important there too. I mentioned a little bit like the choices you've had, and so if you're from a particular system of India in schools, you may or may not actually be able to choose your classes. That's okay. But if you are from somebody who has chosen your classes, what type of classes did you choose? Did you challenge yourself? Are you somebody who likes to challenge and push yourself? Are you somebody who prefers to play safe a little bit? Those tells us a little bit about that. And many of us will also give you an opportunity to interview with us. So we'll flat out ask you, what you'd like to do in life, and we'll get to know you a little more about that. And I want to take the opportunity to give one more thing there, one more piece there that tells us a lot about the attitude that you have towards your goals. And it's just basically your interactions with us. So sometimes a simple email to a university can really help us formulate even more of an understanding of who you are. So I encourage you, as somebody who's starting the process now, to take the time to write a great email to make sure that it doesn't have any typos in it, that it's respectful but yet honest too. We're humans just as much as anybody else, but at the same time remember that when you're presenting yourself to the university, sometimes with your application materials, but sometimes actually through an email, through a phone call, that's just as important to maintain a good representation of who you are there too. The last piece of the puzzle here is the community engagement. And that's basically, what are your personality, your characteristics, your traits, and that will shine through in terms of essays, in terms of what activities you've been involved in the past. Maybe you were a community involved individual. Maybe you volunteer a lot, and so on and so forth. These are the activities that I will talk a little bit about that. So that gives us an insight on how involved are you going to be at our institution? Are you going to take advantage of our clubs and activities? Are you going to be somebody who just goes to class and goes back to your dorm room, for example? These are things that we're looking. So again, lots and lots of materials that you're going to provide, but that really allows us to, in a more fairly manner, evaluate who you are as an entire individual. So moving on a little bit about the process that you're going to be applying. This will vary greatly in terms of which institutions you choose to apply. In our case at Northwestern, we're part of what's called the Common Application. I'm not going to go through this because actually there's an entire website, webinar series that the Next Genius team has put together that dives really deeply into the Common Application. You'll be very you'd be very proficient in the Common Application, not just by the end of the webinar series, but by the end of the process here. But there are many institutions out there that might have their own application. There's something in the US called the Coalition app. That's yet another one. All kinds of different application models that you'll be submitting. And there are different plans. And you may or may not have gone through this, but I'll try to explain on a base level here. I'm going to divide this in two. There are plans for applications in the United States that are binding, and there are some that are non-binding. What does that mean? If you're applying on a binding manner, you, your parents, and your high school counselor will all sign a document that basically states that you understand that if you are admitted to that particular institution, you will withdraw all your applications to the other institutions that you are also planning to apply. So it is, you're binded to attend if you're admitted to that institution. You can only do this to one institution. So you have to be very careful of how you choose this. I will also take the chance to say this. There is an overall myth that if you apply under early decision to highly selective institutions in the United States, that you are more likely to be admitted than not. And I'll say highly selective institutions here, so to make sure that this sticks to you guys. A highly selective institution has tens of thousands of applications. So though an early decision is a great way for universities to have a predictor if you are going to attend or not, it does not substitute your profile for that particular institution. So if your profile is way off, it doesn't matter if you apply early decision or not. All they're going to probably do is defer your application to a non-binding plan. So just keep that in mind as a tip there. On non-binding application plans, that's just everything else. So are you applying to an institution that does not have a set deadline? Those are called rolling admissions. They evaluate applications as they come in and they give you a decision at that point. There's something called an early action, which means you actually apply early, you find out early, but you're not committed, you're not binded to attend that institution. And then regular decision is what you probably would imagine. You apply at a set deadline, you're going to find out by a particular deadline, and then the university will give you usually about a month to come back to them and say, yes, I'm attending. I also would prep by saying, as an Next Genius student, there will be a different type of timeline that you're going to be following here. But I just wanted to give everybody who's participating here a general case of how long it takes for you to actually apply to an institution in the United States. My recommendation is that it takes nearly 8 months to 9 months. It depends. And if you're actually preparing for SATs and ACTs, you technically could have started your application a year or two ahead of you graduating from your last year of high school. So generally you actively begin applying to institutions in August. So right now in December, it depends on which place you are. coming from and you're going to. So you're technically just starting your last year, and yet you're already starting to apply for an institution in the United States. So starting August, there will be generally early action or early decision deadlines are usually in November 1 in particular. And then they will let you know by December or so if you're admitted. In the case of an early decision, they might actually make you decide before even January, and that's it. You're decided, you're going. Now, if you apply on the regular decision, that's usually January, February, it depends on the institution, like I said. And then that takes a little more time. That's the time where universities receive the bulk of their number of applications. So they usually let you know by April of your admission status. And then May 1st is usually regarded in the US as almost like the national decision deposit deadline. That's when you tell the institution you're going to attend that particular institution right there. So this was a very brief, I would say, talk about applications in general. I gave you guys a sense about everything in terms of the holistic review and so on and so forth. To give you a little bit of a context of how I'm explaining everything, I also wanted to just give you a quick little introduction of Northwestern Qatar. And then after that, I think I allotted at least around 15 to 20 minutes of questions to answer. I know a lot of you guys may have particular questions, and I think a very rich discussion can actually happen at that time. So I'll be switching gears a little bit here and talking a little bit about Northwestern, particular our campus here in Qatar and in Doha. Excuse me. Northwestern is an institution based in the United States. We're actually, our home campus is in Evanston, Illinois, just a suburb of Chicago. And Northwestern has 3 campuses, one in Evanston, one in Chicago, and one here in Qatar. It is the exact same institution as the one in the United States. So we're part of Northwestern. We're just considered the 12th school of Northwestern University. So when you graduate from Northwestern Qatar, your transcript, your degree comes from Northwestern University in general. So Northwestern in the US. So it'd be the same exact degree as if you had actually attended our institution back in the US. The only difference is you're actually taking classes here in Qatar. Now, we do specialize in particular in the fields of communication, journalism, strategic communication. So strategic communication basically tells you more about marketing, about branding, about public relations, international relations. This is what strategic communication is, a field that actually marries all of that into the understanding that you use communication to achieve a certain strategy. And we complement those 2 degrees. So there are 2 bachelors of sciences that you can take here, one in communication, one in journalism and strategic communication. We complement those degrees with a great, robust liberal arts model, which means all that is you're taking courses outside of those fields to make sure that you are a well-rounded individual. So you'll be taking classes in economics, you'll be taking classes in political science, be taking classes in ethics, and so on and so forth. And we like to say that you'd be hard pressed to find a community that is as diverse and engaging as ours here. We have about 450 students, give or take, in our campus here in Qatar. So it's quite small. That gives us an opportunity for incredibly personal interactions with your faculty members. And within this small community, we have over 50 plus different countries that are represented in here. So it gives you an idea of the person sitting next to you in class, most likely speaks a different language, comes from a different place in the world, has gone through a total different education system. So what you will contribute and what you will learn from this vibrant community is actually priceless to understand that. And you'll make friends from all over the world, and in very deep friendships, and later on connections that will take you in different routes in life there. So I gave you an idea earlier about what a holistic review is. So what I like to advise anybody at this point is when you are interacting with one of us, so means an admissions representative from an institution, a question that we often are asked that doesn't tell much of, that does not give you the answer that you would like, is usually what are the minimum qualifications to be admitted to your institution. I would like you to take an opportunity to instead ask us, what is an average application? What does an average competitive applicant look like for your academic institution? Because there are no minimum grades and cutoffs and so on a holistic review. So I'll give you an idea for us in here. We're usually looking for individuals that are on the top of their class. And that just means, again, in a context here, right? Your grades may not be a perfect grade, but you might go to a particular school that is incredibly hard to get on a perfect grade. So we're looking at, provided the academic tools that were in front of you, how did you perform? And that's something that we're going to be looking. To give you even more of a set idea, usually students that apply to Northwestern that have taken the SAT have a 1300 or above on their combined scores. So both mathematics and in the English section there. And then for applicants that submit a TOEFL, we usually see about a 104 or so. The test, the TOEFL goes to 120. So that, again, we're looking at the top end of the scores in there. For you applying during the pandemic, we actually have announced that we will evaluate your application without an SAT or an ACT. This is for this upcoming year, because we also understand that many of you have not been able to register and take the exam given the pandemic in there. What else are we looking for here? We're looking for somebody who has great writing and reading and communication skills. We're obviously a university of communication, of journalism, of marketing, and so on. So we need somebody who actually can articulate themselves very well. That might be, again, I want to take this opportunity to also clarify this here. You may be it does not mean that you need to be an extrovert. It just means somebody who actually is able to use communication to achieve a certain goal, and you'll be able to demonstrate that quite well. If you had an opportunity to be involved in leaderships, that's something that we really thrive above here. And somebody who can tell us how and articulate how they're interested in being a global citizen and being somebody who's actually wanting to contribute to their community when they go back, and somebody who's actually can thrive in a very diverse model. Not just Northwestern and Qatar here is a quite diverse community, but also Doha in general is also a community of many different individuals from different parts of the world too. So one more application here, give you guys an idea of the application tools. At Northwestern Qatar, we actually either allow you to apply early action, which means you apply early, you find out early, but if you remember from earlier, you're not binded to actually come to Northwestern if you applied early. You're not obligated to accept your admission offer. Our deadline for that is November 1, so a few months. Or you can apply on the regular decision, and then that means you apply by January 1, and then we will actually give you a decision. For regular decision would be April. For early action, if you apply early in November, we will give your decision in December. So that just also allows you to start the year knowing exactly your decision. So I encourage students who have their application ready to go to apply early. Why not find out early and move on from there? I'm going to touch a little bit about the scholarship and financial aid, and I understand you're obviously involved in Next Genius. There's a great scholarship model, and us as being a partner means that we are committed to helping students that go through the process and are successful in the application through Next Genius and with us with a merit-based scholarship. But for anybody else who's also involved in the application model, and they may not be our finalists, but they may be close to it, Northwestern here in Qatar is committed to meeting the demonstrated need of our admitted students. What does that mean? That means if you receive a particular scholarship, but you still need a financial aid above that, we're committed to actually bridging the gap between the cost of attendance and how much you can pay or how much you can pay with scholarships that have been already provided by them. And we do this with the help from the government, because Qatar is committed to attracting great talent, not just to be educated here in Qatar, but also to consider being in Qatar and being part of the community here too. So it's a combination of grants and assistance from the government and Northwestern. And between those two, we're strongly committed to giving you an opportunity to afford your education to come to Qatar. And that is that. I'll end my presentation, my formal presentation in there. Here's my contact information. I encourage all of you to keep that. If you have particular questions later on, you can always reach out to me, and I'd love to, again, walk you through the process of your application to Northwestern Qatar. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop sharing my